There will come a moment in life when the world around you suddenly feels unfamiliar. You no longer understand why you feel so much, or why your compassion has become a double-edged sword. You've spent half your life understanding others, soothing their wounds, reading the sadness in their eyes, yet rarely has anyone looked deeply enough to see the exhaustion in yours. Then one day, it all clicks. It wasn't because you were weak, but because your soul was ready. When the question, "Why do I always feel too much?" begins to echo in your mind, it's a sign that you're entering the path of awakening. Because empaths are not here to save the world, they are here to remember themselves through the souls they've touched. What we call emotional strength is not an endless gift to be given away, but a lantern meant to illuminate the hidden wounds within. Carl Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And that is the true meaning of this journey. You are not here to become more comfortable. You are here to become more sovereign, not to avoid pain, but to transmute it into wisdom. On this path, every empath must pass through 5 sacred stages, 5 gates that lead the soul from innocence to awakening, from dissolution to integration. Each stage is a ritual of the soul, where illusions crumble, old beliefs burn away, and the true self begins to rise. This is not a journey for the faint of heart. It is lonely, ruthless, and full of trials. But for those brave enough to walk it to the end, they will not just find the light. They will become the light itself. Stage 1. Absorbing the darkness. The early life of an empath feels like living in a house with no doors. Every emotion of others, joy, sadness, anger, anxiety, rushes in like the wind, leaving you unable to tell where their feelings end and yours begin. You learn to read faces, to know if today will be peaceful, to stay quiet, to avoid sudden storms, to smile just to keep the room from breaking. Before you ever learn to speak, you learn to feel. Over time, you become an antenna for the world, sensitive, intuitive, able to pick up vibrations others can't. A single glance tells you what someone hides inside. A subtle shift in a room's energy warns you what's about to happen. But because of that, you slowly forget yourself. Among the countless emotions of others, you disappear like a transparent mirror, reflecting every image except your own. That is the beginning of the karma. Every empath must face the karma of unrefined compassion. In this stage, you love without limits, help without measure, and give without rest. You believe kindness can save everyone, that if you understand people deeply enough, they'll eventually understand you. But life doesn't operate on the fairness of the heart. When you try to soothe the pain of others while ignoring your own, you're drawing water from an empty well to water an entire field. One day, the well dries up, you look down and see only your reflection, silent and alone. Empaths enter life like steady lamps, gentle in light, but easily drained of oil. They hold an innocent belief. If I'm good enough, patient enough, loving enough, no one will leave me. That belief makes them fertile ground for energy-hungry souls, those who have forgotten how to shine their own light. To a narcissist, you're not a person, but an emotional charging station, always ready to soothe, to understand, to forgive. They refill their emptiness, and you slowly empty yourself. From a spiritual perspective, this isn't tragedy, it's the phase of absorbing the darkness. Your soul is learning its first energetic law. Light cannot endure if it never closes its circuit. Carl Jung once wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." This is when darkness begins to knock, not to harm you, but to remind you that compassion without boundaries and love without truth will destroy themselves. Imagine yourself as a crystal cup placed in a river. The water flows in clean water, muddy water, cold, warm, all of it fills you. At first, you feel useful. You're holding something, helping the flow. But as time passes, the cup fills, overflows, and its clarity turns murky. No one notices you're overwhelmed, not even you, until you start to crack. Empaths in this stage live by reflex, apologizing before anyone blames them, agreeing before they have time to think, smiling while their heart quietly bleeds. They fear the silence that follows. No, fear cold eyes. Fear being called selfish, mistaking love for the fear of disconnection. But their kindness isn't wrong. It simply hasn't learned how to breathe. From the Jungian lens, this is when the persona, the social mask, grows larger than the soul. You become the expected version of yourself, not the authentic one. You live on approval, on usefulness, on maintaining peace. Yet the more peace you keep, the farther you drift from your center. Your shadow, the rejected parts of you, the part that longs to be loved without needing to submit, begins to accumulate underneath. Eventually, it pushes to the surface as exhaustion, emptiness, or quiet depression with no clear cause. That is the soul's cry. Stop. Don't try to heal anyone else. Come back and heal yourself. But you can't hear it yet. You'll try to do better, to love more, to overcome by serving harder. You think, maybe I just need to be more patient. Maybe I should understand them more. And so you sink deeper into the swamp. Here, energy no longer flows. It stagnates in a loop. Give, deplete. Give again, collapse. Force yourself to give once more. Spiritually, this is known as the cycle of the unripe soul, where compassion turns into emotional addiction. You become addicted to being needed. When someone comes to you crying, you feel valuable. When they feel better, you feel purposeful. But when they leave, you feel empty. Your existence becomes dependent on the pain of others, and that is the invisible chain. Only when you face this truth does transformation begin. When you ask, am I helping because I love them or because I'm afraid of being forgotten? That is the first spark of awakening. When you dare to say no, even as your heart trembles, that is the sign your soul is learning to step out of stage one. Boundaries for an empath are not cold walls. They are sacred containers for one's own energy. Without them, your light burns wild like a torch in a hay barn. With them, your light becomes a candle in glass, still shining, but safe, steady, and enduring. At times, you'll confuse love with carrying, kindness with self-erasure. But the difference is simple. Love expands you, carrying contracts you. Kindness brings peace. Self-erasure leaves fatigue. Listen to your body, it always knows. If after helping someone you feel lighter, that's love. If you feel heavy, that's a boundary crossed. Life will send tests to help you practice this lesson. An ex returns, a coworker expects you to cover for them, a friend leans too hard on you, someone gets angry when you decline. Each time, the universe isn't punishing you, it's asking, are you ready to choose yourself yet? Only when you can bear the discomfort of disappointing others will you truly keep your own heart. One day you'll understand. Kindness is not about making others comfortable. It's about staying loyal to truth. You can still love, but not rescue. You can still help, but not replace. You can still understand, but not dissolve. Your compassion now has a spine. It knows how to stand, how to bow, and how to stop. When you reach that point, something miraculous happens. Your energy changes direction. You're no longer a container, you become a conduit. You no longer absorb, you transmit. The pain of others passes through you but does not remain. Your light spreads outward, yet never runs dry. That's when your soul is ready for stage 2, the collapse of illusion, where everything that once kept you in the dark begins to shatter, revealing that what you thought was an ending is actually the doorway to another kind of life, one where compassion and wisdom finally walk hand in hand. Stage 2. The collapse of illusion. When the cup is full, the universe doesn't ask if you're ready, it simply tips it over. That's when the second stage begins. The stage of collapse, disintegration, what the mystics call the dark night of the soul. It isn't a night of physical darkness, but the night when every false light you once depended on suddenly goes out. The person you trusted leaves. The job that once gave you worth feels empty. Compliments that used to lift you now sound hollow. And silence, the thing you once feared, floods everything until there's nowhere left to hide. You will feel your soul being dismantled piece by piece. Every belief, every role, every pattern that once defined your way of being begins to crack. Some people walk away, others turn cold, and some disappear as if they never existed. You try to cling, to explain, to fix, but words no longer work. Everything familiar turns strange. The you who once knew how to hold it all together now stands lost and unanchored. This is the stage where the soul begins to dismantle old structures, not to punish, but to liberate. Yet from the human perspective, it feels like the end of the world. You don't know where you're falling, only that you can't go back. For the first time, you no longer have the energy to save anyone, nor enough illusion left to save yourself. The masks, "I'm fine, I understand, I'm strong," fall away, revealing a trembling, tired, but real human being. The first truth this stage reveals: you were never really the healer. You were someone trying to heal yourself through others. When that realization hits, two emotions arise at once: shame and relief. Shame because for years you thought you were selflessly helping, when in truth you were also seeking validation. Relief because you finally don't have to play the saint anymore. You are allowed to be tired, allowed not to know, allowed to be wrong. This collapse often arrives disguised as loss, a relationship, a job, a home, a self-image. Jung called it nigredo, the blackening, the first stage of alchemy, where everything is burned away so the essence can emerge. Mystics describe it as the soul being flayed layer by layer of pretense, niceness, moral rigidity, stripped off until only the core remains. The fear of being forgotten. Amid this chaos, you may feel like you're going insane. Everything that once held meaning slips through your fingers. You look around and see life continuing, people still laughing, loving, posting happy photos, while all you want is to disappear. That's because your ego is dying, while your soul is being reborn. But before rebirth, everything must dissolve. This is a biological process of the spirit, the breakdown of old energetic patterns. After years of living as the rescuer, that identity has wired itself into your nervous system. Every time you sense someone's pain, your body automatically activates the reflex to save, like a heartbeat. When you stop doing that, your body panics, it screams, it sends signals, "Do something." But now your soul demands the opposite: do nothing, stay still. Endure the emptiness, the uselessness, the feeling of not being needed. This is the baptism of the soul. During these long nights, you might cry for no reason, feel like melting, lose sleep or appetite, or sleep endlessly. All of it is normal. Your body is releasing data. Emotional energy you've absorbed from others is being expelled. Let it go. Don't rush to fix it. Don't rush to heal. Don't try to force positivity. Everything you once learned about healing will fail here. This is not where you heal. This is where you are healed through collapse. This stage teaches the most painful truth. Everything you thought you were was just a role. The kind one, the deep one, the wise one, the understanding one. All were costumes you wore to be loved. Now those garments are torn apart, and standing naked in the storm, you realize real love needs no fabric. It doesn't care who you are, it just asks that you be here. But before reaching that truth, you must pass through the confusion of a soul without a home. You no longer belong to the old world, but you haven't yet found the new. You drift in between, suspended in nothingness. This is the liminal space, the threshold between two worlds, where the old has died, but the new has not yet been born. It is still cold and long. In this void, the soul begins to send strange dreams. You're lost in a dusty old house. You try to call someone, but no sound comes out. You stand at a crossroads with no signs. Or you look into a mirror and don't recognize your face. All carry the same message. The old self is dissolving. Don't search. Let it disappear. Here, you learn the first art of awakening, the art of surrender. Surrender isn't giving up. It's seeing clearly and letting go. It's not closing the old door. It's simply stepping away from it. It's accepting that those you love may never understand you, and that's okay. It's knowing that what once defined you is now just an empty shell that has served its purpose. There will come a strange moment when you're crying and suddenly start laughing. You laugh because you realize everything you thought you lost was never truly yours. This acceptance doesn't weaken you, it opens a vast inner space where the soul can rise. And from that silence, you begin to hear your own voice, not the voice of fear, not the echo of others in your head, but the voice of the soul, deep, slow, steady. It says very little, sometimes only a few words. Enough, or come home. And then you understand, home is not where someone waits for you, it's where you no longer need permission to be yourself. During this stage, you'll meet the emotions you once exiled: anger, envy, hurt, contempt, shame. You thought they were enemies, but they are your abandoned children locked in the basement. When you dare to sit with them, even for a moment, they stop screaming. What they want isn't forgiveness, it's recognition. Remember, darkness is only frightening when you ignore it. When you shine awareness into it, it dissolves like morning mist. The dark night doesn't truly last forever. It only feels endless to those who resist it. If you're willing to sit in the night becomes a teacher. It teaches that light is not somewhere else. It's learning to rise from within your darkness. In these days, loneliness ceases to be an enemy. It becomes a pillow where your soul lays its head to hear its true heartbeat. You realize you're not truly alone, you're just separated from noise. Silence begins to take shape, and within it, you discover something you never imagined. You are enough. Even if no one understands, even if no one stays, even if you do nothing useful, you are enough. And that is the sacred rock bottom, where the ego surrenders and the soul speaks. When everything outside you has fallen apart, you finally see what cannot fall within what Jung called the self, the divine center of being, where all opposites meet. You no longer need light from anyone else, because you have become your own flame. Rebirth always begins in collapse. A child cannot be born without the mother's contractions. A seed cannot sprout without cracking open in the dark soil. The soul is the same before it can love truly. It must lose every false love. By the end of this stage, you look back and see nothing was lost, only what no longer served you was taken away. No one betrayed you, they only revealed where you still betrayed yourself. No one truly hurt you, they only touched the wound you had forgotten to heal. No one abandoned you, they simply cleared the path for your return. When you see this, the night is no longer dark, it becomes deep. And in that depth a faint light appears, not blinding, not named, but warm. It is the sign that you are ready for stage 3, soul reunification, where you stop seeking light outside yourself and begin to become it gentle, steady, and true. You have passed through the night, not to escape the darkness, but to remember that you are the dawn. Stage 3, soul reunification. When the storm passes, you are no longer who you were. The world looks the same street, same house, the same familiar faces, but something in the way you see has quietly changed. Not because the world has become gentler, but because you no longer look for peace outside yourself. An old skin has peeled away, revealing a new one, thin, tender, and true. You're entering the 3rd stage, soul reunification. If the first stage was absorbing the darkness, and the second was being swallowed by it, then this is where you learn to walk in darkness without fear. You stop dividing reality into light and dark, and begin to sense that both are the in and out breath of the same life. This is the stage where you no longer ask, why did this happen to me? But quietly wonder, what is it trying to teach me? After collapse comes clarity. This clarity does not come from study or logic, but from touching your own darkness without running. It is a modest awakening, no show, no need to assert anything. You become so simple that others may not understand. You don't argue, prove, or try to save anyone. You simply live, and in that quiet, your energy speaks for you. Reunification doesn't announce itself like collapse. It arrives like spring after a long winter. No fireworks, just a warm fragrance spreading through the air. You notice you can sit in silence without feeling empty. You can be alone without being lonely. You can look at those who hurt you without trembling. Not because you've forgotten, but because you've dissolved the charge. What once hurt becomes a memory that no longer throbs. Jung called this period integration, bringing the fragments of ego and shadow into a whole around the self, the center of the psyche. Spiritually, it is the moment the soul returns to its rightful place within you. No longer in other people, not in relationships that demand proof, not in the roles of the good one or the healer. The soul becomes breath present and unbound. Here, you begin to feel a new energy, balance. You no longer swing between giving and taking, between strength and fragility, between trust and suspicion. You stand in the center. This center isn't cold detachment. It's where all emotions are allowed to pass through without capsizing you. Anger, sadness, love, regret, they still arrive, but you are not drowned. You become the ocean, not the wave. To get here, the soul had to learn the greatest lesson. Not every feeling needs to be processed. Some simply need to be witnessed. For years, you believed you had to get over pain, heal, anger, forgive quickly to move on. Now you see, pain doesn't want to be conquered. It wants to be heard. Anger doesn't need to be snuffed out. It needs to be understood as a signal of self-respect. Forgiveness isn't a gift to others. It frees the energy trapped in your own heart. Soul reunification means the parts within you stop being at war. The strong and the weak, the kind and the angry, the loving and the doubtful. You no longer exile the dark part, you speak with it. When anger rises, you don't scold yourself as pity. You listen to what it's trying to protect. When fear appears, you don't push it away. You ask, what are you asking me to pause for so that nothing essential is harmed? This is the beginning of inner dialogue, the conversation between ego and soul. It ebbs and flows like tides, sometimes gentle, sometimes fierce, but always drawing you closer to center. You begin to understand every part of you is worthy of love, even the part that once made you ashamed. In daily life, the changes are concrete. You eat more slowly, speak less, observe more. You notice small things you once overlooked. Light through a window, wind in the trees, the smell of morning coffee. You see life hiding in everything. Even old work that used to drain you now carries a new layer of meaning. You don't do it for praise, but to see something brought to completion. You treat ordinary acts as small rituals, simple but conscious. At this stage, empaths begin to sense the sacred boundary, not a fence, but a thin halo of light around their energy. When someone approaches with an agenda to control, that light hums. Your body registers the truth racing heart, tight shoulders, a stomach that clenches at their tone. Before, you would try to understand them. Now you simply smile and step back. Not because you hate them, but because you refuse to repeat old lessons. You no longer need to prove your goodness. You want peace. You don't need anyone to recognize your change. You already know. And the paradox is, when you stop proving, the world begins to see you. People sense a quiet in you still, but warm. They come not to be fixed, but because being near you helps them hear their own voice. You also glimpse a subtle truth. Real love isn't merging. It is standing side by side without invasion. Love doesn't ask you to disappear to fit. It is two whole souls choosing to walk together, unbound. You stop seeking someone to fill a void because there is no void to fill. You choose those who expand your soul, not those who make you feel chosen. Creative energy rises here. As the soul unifies, energy once stuck in old roles is released. You feel moved to write, paint, sing, dance, or simply make something, not for approval, but to express flow. You realize creativity isn't the privilege of artists, it's the natural breath of a free soul. When you are true, creativity happens while you cook, speak, or meet someone with full presence. Spiritually, this is when the self begins to glow. Not a blinding light that demands admiration, but a warm inner light. Jung wrote, "The self is not a destination, but the center around which everything arranges itself." You feel this in your breath. Things that once scared you, rejection, loss, silence, become gentle teachers. You see there is no one against you, only circumstances steering you back to yourself. You rebuild trust. Not blind trust in people, but trust in the current of life. You stop asking, why did this happen? And start asking, where is it leading me? You sense a deeper order moving beneath the chaos. This trust isn't theoretical, it's earned. You lost everything once, and you are still here. Practically, this shows up as unhurriedness. You stop racing time or comparing yourself to others. When someone unloads a crisis, you don't scramble to fix it. You know your quiet presence can be stronger than 1,000 words. When someone attacks you with sharpness, you don't react. You sense the fear beneath their anger. You stop fighting the world. You listen to it. Deeper still, reunification is when heart and mind begin to speak the same language. No more tug of war between what reason says and what the heart wants. You live from a quiet center where feelings no longer rule, but guide. Intuition grows accurate because it's no longer clouded by the need to be loved or approved. Many describe this as being born again. You wake up to a world both familiar and new. No longer exhausted by effort, you live like the grass and trees fragrant because they are, not for anyone's applause. You work, love, and create without hunting for meaning because you have become the meaning. Soul reunification has no graduation, no medals. Its reward is stillness. Smiling at an old scar, hearing an old song without the urge to cry, standing in a crowd and feeling free inside, knowing you no longer need anyone to understand you because you understand yourself. From here, a new energy awakens. Service. Not service to be loved, but service because you are full. You radiate naturally without trying. Others sense something hard to name: steadiness without posturing, gentleness without weakness, clarity without judgment. In dreams, symbols of unity may appear. The sun rising from the sea, the Ouroboros, a child smiling in your hands. The unconscious is telling you, you have come home. Soul reunification ends not with thunder, but with a deep breath. A breath taken not for someone, but simply to live. Inhaling, the universe enters you. Exhaling, you become the universe. This is the moment an empath is no longer merely an empath, but a witness, one who can love the world without losing themselves, feel deeply, and keep their peace. In the end, your journey is not to become better, but whole. Not to carry only light, but to understand the dark. Not to be loved, but to become love. And when that happens, you stop asking when the journey will end, because you know the journey is life itself. Stage 4. Stillness and resurrection. At some point after you've gathered your scattered pieces, learned to listen to yourself, loved without dissolving, and stood steady in life's surf, the universe returns. This time not loud or violent, but as a cool wind gliding through the mind. You think it's over, that you've matured spiritually, that you know how to live awake. But this new peace has a different taste, not sweet tranquility, but vast emptiness. No pain, no joy, no heavy, no light, just an immense inner quiet that swallows words, emotions, and aims. This is the void, the sacred space, where the universe takes back every definition you've clung to, including I am awakened. If stage 3 is the soul's integration, stage 4 is where even that integration is taken, so you can touch the formless essence of existence. In Eastern philosophy, this is no self. In Jungian terms, it's the full opening of the self, where the boundary between me and world melts. Outwardly, life looks ordinary. You work, sip morning coffee, smile at people. Inside, everything feels transparent. Joy doesn't spike you. Sorrow doesn't sink you. Even old dreams and burning desires loosen and fall like withered petals. Not from despair, but because you no longer need to hold anything to feel alive. This stage begins with a great pause of the soul. After all the lessons of give and receive, light and dark, right and wrong, you're led into a state beyond labels. Everything you believed turns into a question. You look around and ask, If I am no longer the healer, the seeker, the one trying to improve, then who am I? The question echoes without reply. You wait for an answer, but none comes. And in that non-answer, the real transformation begins. The soul no longer needs outside guidance. Teachings, books, instructions become excess. You may have read volumes on awakening, heard thousands of tips, meditated for hours. Now, a single breath is enough. One inhale, one exhale, and you know everything has always been here. Before this ease, you pass through a tasteless zone where everything seems dull to a frightening degree. Passion, inspiration, drive appear to vanish. You may sit for hours wanting nothing. Small talk loses its appeal, and old enthusiasms feel empty. Through old eyes, it looks like low energy or depression. In truth, you're slipping free of the emotional waves that used to run you. Without the waves, you start to feel the still sea underneath the one that has always been there. That sea is your true nature, not happy, not sad, not lacking, not excessive, simply present. This is radical purification, not psychological or emotional, but existential. Like a fever that has broken, the sweat has dried, your breath is slower, but you're still weak and hazy. Your soul, too, has released most of the old charge, but hasn't yet acclimated to the new frequency, the frequency of silence. Because silence is what humans fear most, you may feel empty, directionless, even lost. Some, upon arriving here, try to fill the space. Work binges, travel, spiritual experiences, new relationships, relentless creating. The more they do, the more exhausted they become. This emptiness isn't meant to be filled, it is meant to be seen. It is the cave where the soul rests after years of battle. It is the holy white space between two heartbeats where the universe rewrites your story in invisible ink. Within this space, all labels fall away. You are no longer empath, healer, or awakened one. You are breath pure presence. At times it can feel like there is no self. Instead of fearing it, you realize the absence of a someone is not a problem. With no one to protect or prove, you finally taste freedom. At the deepest level, this is a small death of the ego. It doesn't hurt like before because it arrives gently like a candle going out. No drama, no tragedy, just a quiet dissolving. From that quiet, another light appears, the light of awareness. Awareness isn't positive thinking or emotional control. It's seeing what's happening without labels or interference. You watch sadness pass without pushing it away. You feel loneliness arrive without rushing to fill it. You notice yourself doing nothing, and in that moment you realize life continues. This is the pivot, from living inside emotions to witnessing them. You stop being the wave and rest as the ocean. You stop being the character and become the storyteller. The more you rest in awareness, the clearer it becomes that life doesn't need your control. Things move by their own rhythm. You may be pushed out of comfort, lose a job, a person, your direction, but instead of panicking, you breathe. What must go, goes. What belongs, returns in its time. In this stillness, you learn absolute trust, not in a deity out there, but in the flow of existence itself. If every breath is gifted without effort, then everything else moves by the same unseen kindness. Practically, this phase can last months or years. From the outside, it looks like you're on pause. Inside, a reconstruction is underway. Your energetic architecture is changing. Life stops being reaction and becomes response. You choose not from fear, but from quiet. Each act grows simple and powerful because it comes from a place with no resistance. Then one morning, you notice stillness is no longer frightening. It has become the soundtrack of your life. You work, speak, care for someone, and in everything you keep a spaciousness within. This is what the ancients called meditation in action. You don't need the mountains to find calm. You carry the mountain within. Your peace begins to spread, not through words, but frequency. Around you, nerves settle. Children relax in your arms. The panicked slow down as they speak to you. You become a point of calm in the world's whirl. This is resurrection, not from suffering, but in suffering. Not living again with a new ego, but living as if there's no one left to die. You stop seeking meaning because you have become meaning. You stop striving to serve because every breath is already service. You stop begging for light because light pours through ordinary acts. This resurrection isn't success or victory. No audience, no stage, only one witness awareness. You begin to find the sacred not in ritual, but in presence. Washing dishes is meditation. Caring for someone is prayer. Keeping quiet in noise is love at its highest. Jung wrote, "Man is not enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." In this stage, you don't need to imagine light, you are it. You don't try to illuminate anyone. You simply exist, and the world is naturally lit. You may notice small, strange shifts. Time feels slower. Events you likely intend unfold easily. People who no longer fit drift away without conflict. You see that the outer world mirrors the order within. No one finishes this stage. It has no finish line. It is a dance between appearing and disappearing. One day you feel sorrow, the next, serenity. But now, you don't call it failure or backsliding. You smile because you know all feelings are waves within the ocean you hold. Love also changes form. It becomes understanding itself. You love without owning, help without needing thanks, share without expecting return. Love becomes the natural state of awareness. You don't do love, you are love. This is resurrection not from pain but through it. Not a return with a new identity, but life lived with no one left to defend. From here, you no longer have to search for your soul, because you and your soul are one, and that is the deepest truth of stage 4. Life is no longer something to grasp or figure out, but to experience in stillness. You find meaning in small moments, a drop of dew on a leaf, a passerby's glance, rain on a tin roof. Nothing is random. Nothing is useless. Every breath is a miracle. From here, you prepare for the final stage, the sacred union, where the soul no longer stands apart as observer, but merges with life itself. Before you arrive, stay with this quiet a while longer, because when you stop searching, you finally see the destination you've longed for has never been elsewhere. It is right here, in the breath, in presence, in you. Stage 5, the sacred union. When you enter the final stage, the sacred union, you notice something strange. There is no bell that rings, no milestone that says, "I've arrived." It comes quietly, light as breath. One morning you wake and find there is nothing left to become. No more person who is healing, awakening, or trying to understand. No more idea of progress or spiritual development. Everything turns so transparent that inside and outside can no longer be told apart. There is no longer a me seeking God, because you realize you are the very place where God breathed the first breath of life. This is the moment all boundaries dissolve. The small self that resisted, judged, and tried to grasp melts into the current of the whole. You no longer fight life, because you see life was never against you. Every loss, betrayal, and ache was the way the universe brought you home to yourself. What you once wanted to escape now appears as grace. You no longer want to fix, to win, to control. You simply look and see everything is in its place. What once seemed wrong is simply how life taught you what love is. In that space, fear evaporates like morning mist. You don't need to believe that everything will be okay, because deep within you know it always is. Peace is no longer a moment. It is your nature. When something happens, you don't react, you feel, and let it pass. Like the sky, you allow clouds and winds to move through, no clinging, no chasing. You still live, love, and work, but everything is done in effortless ease. The ego that once sat at the center of every fear is gone. There is no sense of someone watching, only pure awareness. No more I am looking at the world, but the world and you breathing as one. You don't act awakened. Awakening is what unfolds through a human shape. Language, action, and love become the natural expressions of life. You still split firewood, wash dishes, walk your child to school, but in each act there is a silent holiness, because you are not doing them to gain anything. Life is revealing itself through you. Then love changes form. It is no longer a feeling aimed at someone. It becomes a field that holds everything. You don't love that person because they are special. You love because you cannot not love. This love needs no return, no proof. It is like breath, unstoppable, not a choice. The empath at this stage is no longer burned by compassion because they have moved beyond the personal layer of emotion. They do not feel with to suffer alongside. They understand through the light of awareness. When someone is in pain, they do not carry it. They radiate the space that can contain it. They do not try to heal because they know no one truly needs healing, only to be seen and accepted. Then love becomes wisdom. A wisdom not learned from books, but etched into the soul after passing through life's extremes. Loving and being betrayed, trusting and being deceived, giving and being taken from, hoping and despairing, falling and rising. After all this, love in you is no longer as fragile as emotion. It is as deep as truth. You don't love to be comforted. You love because loving is how you breathe with the universe. From here, you live in the current of knowing. Decisions come naturally. You don't have to think it through or map it all out. Because when you move with the flow, things arrange themselves in quiet wonder. You say the right thing, meet the right person, appear at the right time. Jung called this sacred harmony synchronicity, when the personal unconscious and the collective unconscious hum at one frequency. The universe is no longer outside you. It is within you, like waves in the ocean. Now you no longer pray as you once did, asking for something to happen. You understand your very presence is prayer. Small things become holy, a drop of water, a sunbeam, a bird's song, a stranger's glance. You don't need to seek meaning because you are the meaning. At the deepest level, you begin to see that both light and shadow are God. There is nothing left to condemn, nothing to avoid. You no longer wish to fix the world, nor do you need to forgive anyone. You simply see every soul is learning, each walking their own road, and all roads return to the same source. Seeing this, you can no longer hate, not because you force yourself to be good, but because there is no separation left to feed hatred. From the outside, no one may notice a difference. The unified one does not blaze with spectacle, speak in riddles, or seek honor. They might be an ordinary person, a teacher, a parent, a carpenter, a shopkeeper. Yet near them you feel a different aura, an unforced peace, warm and unpretentious. They are not trying to improve anyone. Simply by being there, others feel lighter. Paradoxically, they become profoundly human. They can laugh, cry, even grow angry, but feelings pass through like clear water, leaving no residue. They don't suppress emotion, for they know all feelings are waves on the ocean of awareness. They let them come and go, guests who visit and depart. With no ego to dam the stream, source light flows through them easily. They become a natural channel of healing energy. They don't lecture, don't perform, don't try to transmit anything. They just live, and in their living, others are illuminated. A candle does not strain to light another candle. It simply burns, and light spreads. True realization does not pull one away from life. It deepens one's immersion in it. The unified one lives in the world without being swept away by it. They love without fearing loss, give without running dry, stand in chaos with a heart as calm as a still lake. They see the temporary without sorrow, the eternal without pride. For them, every moment is a door into the timeless. Then you understand the simplest thing. You never left home. All the seeking, healing, suffering, and awakening were a circle bringing you back to where you began, but with new eyes. You look at the world with gratitude. You see God in a droplet, a child's laughter, calloused hands, even in the one who once hurt you. You see yourself in them and them in you. No more me and them. Only us in the endless dance of life. This is when the soul returns home. No trumpets, no crown, no medal for enlightenment. Only a single breath, simple, deep, complete. But in that breath, you feel the whole cosmos breathing with you. You are the ocean in a drop, the infinite in each heartbeat. No more searching, no more fear, no more waiting. And in that instant, every journey closes, not with an ending, but with a beginning, living as life itself. Each step becomes a prayer, each glance a blessing, each breath the voice of eternity. You are no longer on the spiritual path because you have become the path. You need no more light, you are the light. You need not seek God, you and God are one. You need not become anyone, you already are all things. And in that stillness, you smile, because after lifetimes adrift, you remember the simplest truth. You are the light. You have always been the light. And at last, you are home. Part 6. When the empath becomes a flame for humanity. When the soul has crossed the 5 gates of the journey from innocence, collapse, rebirth, integration, to dissolving into light, a new chapter begins, no longer for the individual, but for the whole. The empath is no longer merely a healer of themselves. They become a keeper of the flame, one who elevates the world's frequency simply by how they exist. They need not preach, wear the title, guru, or seek recognition. Their presence softens hearts through a glance, a touch, or a shared silence. Here you perceive a quiet, profound truth. Personal awakening is empty if it does not help awaken the collective. Light means nothing if it is not shared. And so, after moving through every personal fear and illusion, the empath naturally feels a calling not to help, but to serve. Not from guilt or duty, but from a gentle joy. I exist so that light may pass through me. In a society exhausted by speed and division, those who have walked the path of healing become energetic markers, unseen bridges guiding people back to their humanity. They may be unknown without millions of followers, yet they are the ones silently changing humanity's frequency. They listen instead of judge, breathe instead of react, accept instead of control. In these seemingly small acts, a new era is shaped, a time of lucid awareness and sovereign love. Carl Jung said, "There is no collective awakening without individual awakening. And when individual awakening runs deep enough, it spreads like the scent of a flower that cannot hide its fragrance." Having reached union, the empath naturally becomes a resonant point without teaching. Each step leaves an energetic imprint that makes it easier for others to follow. Now, you see clearly that the human soul and the soul of Earth are one. Each time you heal yourself, the planet breathes easier. Each time you forgive, the collective field grows lighter. Each time you choose love over fear, the world tilts closer to the light. You need do nothing grand. Your peaceful presence is already a great act. The empath who has finished the inner journey no longer lives in mission mode. They don't have to save the world. They know the world does not need saving, only awakening. And awakening doesn't arrive through arguments or theories, but through the presence of souls who remember who they are. From here, life becomes simple and full of wonder. You find meaning in the smallest things: sunlight through a curtain, a child's cry, the smell of fresh bread. You feel the universe whispering in details. Nothing is ordinary because you see the divine in everything. At this stage, the empath doesn't say, "I'm meditating." They live in meditation. They don't say, "I'm loving." They are love. They don't say, "I'm believing." Trust has become the air they breathe. The split between the spiritual and the everyday dissolves. They can sit in the deep silence of consciousness and laugh wholeheartedly at life's party. Perhaps the most beautiful return here is clarity's innocence. After layers of knowledge, lessons, pain, and awakenings, you come back as a child, guileless, curious, weightless. But unlike the child you once were, this child has walked through darkness and come back with light. It is unafraid to love, to lose, to die. It knows everything is the universe's play, and the only task is to play wholeheartedly in love. Thus, the empath becomes an artist of existence. They no longer say, "I want to heal," but "I want to create." They turn pain into poetry, memory into music, silence into art. Every expression, gaze, breath, work, word, carries a code that helps others remember what inside them has slept. In times when humanity is lost, such people become lighthouses. They don't shout slogans, argue, or pose as all-knowing. They simply stand and light radiates. Those who approach feel something language cannot name, the feeling of home. Look around and you will see. The world needs such people more than ever. Not new heroes, but those awake in quiet, soft, clear, authentic. Those who can walk through storms without trembling, look into the dark without judging, and say, I understand without explaining. This is the empath's archetype for a new era. Not one who sacrifices to be loved, but one who lives in love, so sacrifice isn't needed. They no longer react to darkness. They invite it to sit down and have tea. They no longer try to rescue another soul. They hold up a mirror so the other can see themselves. In that reflection, light is born. At this level, awakening is no longer a spiritual privilege, but the natural responsibility of a soul that remembers. Like a candle, once lit, it cannot help but shine. It doesn't have to do, it simply is. You begin to grasp that awakening is not the end of the road, but the opening to a larger mission, the mission to live fully in the world. You will still laugh, still cry, still be wounded at times, but now you know how to turn pain into light and tears into rain that nourishes other souls. Perhaps only now do you understand the deepest meaning of the journey. We were never going anywhere. Every step was a circle home. And when home at last, the soul has no need to assert, no need to seek, only to live as the evidence of the sacred. You are the universe's breath, the heartbeat of life, a song that never ends. You did not come to prove, you came to be. And in that very being, the world is reborn. Part 7, a message from stillness. When the journey has reached its farthest shore, when every storm has passed, when light and shadow have learned to sit beneath the same sky, what remains is not victory, nor some absolute bliss. What remains is grateful stillness. Not the stillness of a hollow void, but the stillness of someone who understands so deeply there is nothing left to explain. After walking through everything, the empath no longer asks, who am I? Or what is the meaning of life? Because they have become a living answer. This stillness is not the end of movement. It is movement's highest state, where everything unfolds in perfect order without needing control. You begin to see that life is never offbeat, coming and going, loving and losing, blooming and withering. Each holds its place in the endless symphony of the universe. Only when the ego stops interfering can you hear the true melody. And when you hear it, you smile because you understand nothing was ever really wrong. You simply weren't still enough to see the whole. In this stillness, the mind grows humble and the heart becomes vast. You no longer want to prove anything nor persuade anyone to awaken. You recognize that every soul has its own rhythm, its own lessons, its own road home. No one is late, no one is wrong, no one needs to be pushed. Each soul is a note in the divine score, and at last you learn to stand and listen instead of trying to conduct. At this stage, the empath no longer fusses over protecting energy as before. They don't build hard walls because they know true boundaries live in frequency, not in distance. When you dwell in the frequency of peace, nothing can invade. When you stand in true love, no darkness can devour you. You don't need to fight the negative because resistance is the very food that feeds it. You simply hold presence as light, and in that light, things dissolve by themselves. Compassion is no longer entangled with pity. It has become the heart's wisdom, soft and razor, clear at once. You can say no without guilt. You can look upon someone suffering without rushing to save them, simply seeing with awareness. You understand that if someone must learn through pain, then pain is their grace. No one is pitiful. There are only souls learning their way home, each at a different tempo. From that knowing, you live more simply than ever. You eat when hungry, sleep when tired, speak when needed, keep quiet when it serves. You no longer resist the current, nor try to move faster. You live like a river, sometimes swift, sometimes glass, calm, always faithful to its course. You no longer fear being carried, because you know every river meets the sea, and the sea is you. Within this stillness, fear ripens into clarity. You no longer fear losing someone, being misunderstood, or what the future holds. You see clearly, loss is only change of form. Nothing truly leaves you energy, only changes its clothing. When a person departs, a lesson remains. When a chapter closes, another opens. Life never takes. It only trades the way it gives. And you smile at what once made you cry, because now you see it was all a gift. In such stillness, the empath begins to hear more, not with the ears, but with an invisible attunement. You can hear another's soul inside silence. You sense what hasn't been spoken. You realize the world isn't truly noisy, we simply forgot how to listen. And when you listen deeply, you notice a wonder. Every soul is praying, each in their own language. The harsh one is begging to see love. The lonely one is begging to be touched. The dishonest one is begging to be forgiven. No one is evil, they are blind. And you do not judge the blind for not seeing light, you quietly open a window. When stillness grows deep enough, faith stops being an idea and becomes experience. You do not believe in God. You feel God living in every cell. You no longer search for a mission because you are that mission. There is no border between the empath and the universe. You become the breath of life, moving with the whole. From here, whatever you do, cooking a meal, holding someone, or simply watching the sky, turns into a sacred rite. You realize awakening doesn't make you higher than anyone. It makes you see more clearly that all are one. You no longer need recognition because you know you cannot be diminished. No one can make you less because you see that souls only mirror one another. The one who hurt you was a soul who signed a contract to help you grow. The one who betrayed you unknowingly gave you the greatest gift, self-sovereignty. Knowing this, hatred has nowhere to live. In this stillness, your presence becomes a language. You no longer teach with words, but with energy. Those who come near you settle, as if entering an invisible temple. You don't strive to change anyone, because you understand only true love melts the ice around a heart. And true love is not giving, it is being with. Being with another's pain without being consumed by it. Being with the world's darkness without losing your own light. The outer world remains chaotic war, greed, deceit, breakage, but you no longer despair. You see seeds of rebirth inside every ruin. You understand humanity is moving through a collective dark night, just as you once moved through your own. And as dawn follows every long night, the light of humanity will return. You do not have to drag anyone from the dark. You only need to keep the lamp lit. When your soul abides in this stillness, each day is meditation in motion. You don't hide away on a mountain or in a forest, because you know true stillness is not a place, but a state of awareness. You can stand in the market, in the street, in the noise, and be as quiet as the seabed. You can love, work, create, even fail and remain as peaceful as before. In the end, you grasp the simple truth toward which every pilgrimage points. There is nowhere to go. God is not at the road's end. God is in this breath. Not on a distant peak, but in the heart now beating in your chest. And you laugh a laugh, both childlike and wise. Everything you sought, love, freedom, peace, meaning, was never apart from you. Then you walk lightly through the world. No creed to carry, no title to wear, no audience to impress. Only an honest gaze, an open heart, and hands ready to receive whatever comes. You live like the wind, free, gentle without a trace. And if someone asks, what is awakening after all? You simply smile, look into their eyes and say, awakening isn't about adding more. It's about less. Less fear, less resistance, less craving, less belief in separation, until there is nothing left to lessen, only love. And then you fall silent, because nothing more is needed, because everything has already been said by the way you live. Because once the soul has become stillness, stillness itself is the language of God. When the journey ends, you see there is no true ending. Every mile, every tear, every collapse, every moment you thought all was lost did not take you somewhere else. It brought you home. not to a house of brick, but to the house of the soul, where at last you can sit in the center of your own heart and say, I'm home. You no longer need to be understood, because you understand. You no longer need to be loved, because you are love. You no longer fear loneliness, because you recognize loneliness as a mirror of your soul's vastness. You no longer yearn to escape life. You begin to love it exactly as it is. Beautiful, messy, rough, and sacred. There is nothing to let go of, because there is nothing left to hold. Everything has been returned to its rightful place. Pain becomes compost for wisdom. Love becomes the light in your chest. Enemies become teachers. And old scars now proof that the soul has passed through fire and kept its shape of light. Then you understand what only souls once crushed can truly know. No wound is meaningless. Every crack is a seam where light slips in. No past needs erasing, only memories needing to be held with gratitude. Without them, you could never be the person sitting here now, steady, deep, shining from within. Looking out at the world, you no longer see chaos, but a collective lesson being written in real time. You see each person wrestling with their own shadow, as you once did. You see humanity relearning the language of the heart awkwardly, slowly, but sincerely. And you know, everything is evolving, whether or not we perceive it. In this dawn of awareness, you stop asking life to be gentler. Instead, you ask for a heart strong enough to love life as it is. You stop running from pain. You stand in the storm and smile, because you know the storm is another way the universe reminds you you are alive. Awakening doesn't make you a saint. It makes you a whole human, able to laugh, to cry, to love, to err, without forgetting who you are in the midst of it all. You will still have tired days, lonely nights, and moments of doubt, but instead of collapsing, you observe. Instead of self-condemnation, you place a hand on your heart and say, I am still learning. This is the most beautiful image of a mature soul. Someone still learning, but no longer afraid of the lesson. One day, as you walk in the afternoon light, sun on your shoulders, wind in your hair, you stop not for any special reason, but because your heart suddenly feels strangely at peace. No past pulling you back, no future calling your name, only the present. Vivid, warm, boundless. You realize happiness was never a destination, but a state of presence. And then you know. The empath's path was never about healing so much as remembering your divine nature. Everything you ever did, loving, hurting, losing, forgiving, was for you to return to one simple sentence. I have been light from the very beginning. No more seeking. No more proving. No more perfecting. For that light, despite all the clouds of illusion, never once went out. The journey closes here, but the light you carry keeps shining wherever you go, in every meeting, every glance, every breath. And somewhere, in the moment, someone looks at you and feels peace. Their soul will whisper, I'm going home too. That is fulfillment. Not because you attained something, but because you became what you were always searching for.